This is diving a bit deep into the retina. Okay, so first up, we see the ganglion cells. Now, these are the final output neurons of the retina. So they receive visual information from the photoreceptor cells via the intermediate bipolar cells. And the ganglion cells base axons bundle together to form the optic nerve, which transmits visual information to the brain. Now, the bipolar cells we're talking about, it basically acts as intermediaries between the photoreceptors, so the rods and cones, and the ganglion cells. And they collect signals from the photoreceptor cells, right? So they collect information from the photoreceptor cells um, and pass them on to the ganglion cells. And then we have the rods. Now, these are highly sensitive to low light levels, which make them very crucial for night vision, and they don't detect color, but they're excellent for detecting movement and providing peripheral vision. And cones are another type of photoreceptor cells that are now responsible for color vision and visual um, color vision basically. And they work best in bright light, and they're concentrated in the fovea, which is a central part of the retina where the vision is the sharpest. Now, lastly, we see the retinal pigment epithelium. So, this is a layer of pigmented cells which are located just above the retina, and it plays a crucial role in nourishing the retinal visual cells, removing the waste, and also regenerating photopigments that are used by the rods and cones. So, just kind of looking at the flow of this entire thing is that light basically it hits the rods and the cones, and then the cells convert the light into electrical signals, and then the signals from the rods and cones are then transmitted to the bipolar cells, and finally the bipolar cells pass the signals to the ganglion cells whose axons form the optic nerve, and eventually they send the visual information to the brain for processing. And of course, the role of the retinal pigment epithelium is for maintaining the health of the photoreceptors. All right, so the diagram on the left is sort of a summary of the different parts and their functions we've been looking at. So I want us to focus on the diagram on the right. So this diagram, as you can see, showcases a healthy optic nerve and a damaged optic nerve. Now we want to understand in detail what the differences are in terms of structure, appearance, and function. Now, when we come to a healthy optic nerve, it's made up of more than 1 million nerve fibers that carry visual information from the retina to the brain. And when you look at it in terms of physical appearance, now these fibers are intact and very well organized, which allows for efficient transmission, of visual signals and the function. So, of course, it can ensure that we see clearly and we can recognize shapes, colors, and movements accurately. Whereas when we look at a damaged optic nerve, it can occur due to various reasons such as glaucoma, trauma, or optic neuritis. So these conditions we will be looking at in our future videos. So the nerve fibers may become disorganized, they can become swollen or atrophied. In terms of appearance, we can see that we might see signs of swelling, degeneration, or loss of nerve fibers. And this also disrupts the function because the brain receives incomplete or distorted images, which leads to symptoms like blurred vision, blind spots, or even vision loss. And this is really important because identifying optic nerve damage, it can help in managing conditions like glaucoma, and don't worry about the eye infections and conditions. We will look at it in our future videos. And it's also important because it can be treated, some of these optic nerve damages can be treated or managed to preserve vision. And remember, it's important to maintain good overall health and managing conditions like diabetes and hypertension and protecting your eyes from injury. It can help keep your optic nerve healthy. So, in this diagram, it's kind of like the external structure of the eye once again, but we want to look at how our eyes produce and manage tears. Okay, so first of all, tears are essential for keeping our eyes moist, clean, and comfortable. And we'll also touch on how crying works actually. This is something really interesting. So, first up, we have the lacrimal gland. Okay, so this is situated above the outer cornea of the eye. So, this gland produces tears that lubricates the eye and washes away dust and other irritants. So, um, the tears produced here travel through tiny ducts called the lacrimal gland ducts, which transport them to the surface of the eye. And when we blink, our eyelids spread these tears evenly across the eye surface, much like how a windshield wiper does that. So it basically ensures our vision remains clear. So eyelashes and eyelids also play a vital role. So they protect the eyes from debris and they help spreading the tears. So once the tears have done their job, they need to be drained, right? And this is where the puncta comes in. So they are basically small openings that are located at the inner corners of the eye, of the upper and lower eyelids. Now they act as entry points for tears to drain from the eye surface into the lacrimal canalically. So, the superior and inferior lacrimal canals are tiny channels that carry the tears from the puncta to the lacrimal sac. Now, this is positioned at the inner corner of the eye. So, the lacrimal sac collects these tears and it acts as a temporary holding area. So from here, what happens is that the tears travel down the nasolacrimal duct into the nasal cavity. And this explains why your nose runs when you cry, because tears drain into the nasal passage. Isn't that interesting? Now, at the inner corner of the eye, you'll also find the caruncle. So, as we mentioned this before when we were talking about the external structure of the eye, it is a small pinkish bump. Remember those two adjectives, small and pinkish. Okay, so they contain sweat and oil glands that contribute to the tear film. And adjacent to the caruncle is the plica semilunaris. Now, this is a crescent-shaped fold of tissue that helps with tear drainage and eye movement. Now let's tie it all together with the process of crying. So when we cry due to emotions, the lacrimal glands ramp up tear production. Now these tears spread across the eye, but if we produced in large quantities, they can overflow from the puncta and run down our cheeks. Now the excess tears then drain through the puncta into the lacrimal canals, into the lacrimal sac, and finally through the nasolacrimal duct into the nasal cavity. And that is why we might have a runny nose when we cry.